Okay, welcome back to the classroom. So today we're going to do a review of some of the ratio tables, and we set one up yesterday, and I think it was the race car scenario, and found out the speed of that using that ratio table. And today we're going to expand upon that and review one table. So this first part that I'm going to put down, you don't need to write down, you can just kind of watch it. And it's just a review of using the rates and ratios. And the second part, I'm going to put in a finding a rate from a ratio table, and again you won't have to write down. So this part is just a review. So let's go ahead and get started. So you can see up top that I kind of titled it Finding Ratios and Rates again. And on this one, we're going to use a scenario, and I'll read it to you, and then I'll go ahead and write it out. But the scenario are that we have 45 males and 60 females in a subway car. Now the subway car travels 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. So let's get our information down first. So there are 45 males, okay, and 60 females, okay, in a subway car. And the other part of it is the subway car travels, so this is speed, so it travels 2.5 miles, okay, in 5 minutes. Okay, so what I did is I just simplified that. Instead of writing the entire paragraph down, I pulled the information that I wanted to use out. Okay, and it actually gave me information for two different ratios. One is males to females, and the other is miles in 5 minutes. So we're going to divide this into two parts. So question A is going to ask what's the ratio, okay, of males to females. Okay, so that's a pretty easy one, and we'll go up top and underline it in blue. We have 45 males and 60 females. Now remember, they're asking males to females, and so they're asking for the male first, so that's the one that needs to go on top. So we have 45 males, okay, and in this one we have 60 females, so it's 45 over 60. Okay, so that's our rate that we're looking at right now. Okay, now this rate is not reduced, and we practiced reducing these rates yesterday, and so we actually need to go ahead and reduce this. So I'm going to forget about the units, the male, female. I'm just going to put the actual fraction down for now to make it a little bit easier. Okay, and remember, this is the same thing we were doing yesterday. We got to reduce that down to a simpler fraction or a simpler rate. So we have 45 and 60, and we've got to figure out a number that will go into both of those, the biggest one we can think of, that you can divide both of them by. And in this case, I can divide both of those by a 15. Okay. Now, if you can't think of 15 right away, you can think of, say, 5 and divide it by 5. The only thing is that you're not going to get the completely simplified answer. You'll have to do the process again in order to reduce it one more time, which is okay. I do that sometimes myself. So, but in this case, I know that 15 does go into 45 and it does go into 60. So on the top here, 45 divided by 15 is 3, and 60 divided by 15 is 4. Okay, so I'll go ahead and put the units back in there. So for every 3 males, there are 4 females on the subway. Okay, so that answers this question. That's how I got my reduced or simplified ratio of males to females. Now remember, if that would have been females to males, it would have been the 60 on top and the 45 on the bottom, and so the end result would have been 4/3. In that case, when you reduce it down to be 1 1/4 kind of thing. But just kind of keep that in mind. Okay, so that's the first part of it. So we actually got the ratio of the males to females. So let's go and do part B of this, and part B is they give us up here, the subway actually will go 2.5 miles in 5 minutes. Okay, well, so if I want to find, say, the speed of the subway car, okay, so speed of the subway car, well, that's another ratio. So let me change my color back to blue. So the ratio this time is going to be the miles and then the minutes. So that's our two pieces of information. Now on this one, it's a little bit more unclear about which one to put on top, and so a lot of times you try to put the smaller one on top, but really the one that you're going to put on top is the one that you're looking for, because we're going to reduce the bottom down to 1, and so we're actually looking at the speed, so we want to know how fast it's going, okay, or how far it's going in this case. So we want the 2.5 on top. Okay, so it's 2.5 miles, and it does that in 5 minutes, because eventually what we want to do is get the 5 minutes down to 1 minute once we simplify it, so we know how far it goes in 1 minute, which is the speed. Okay, so again, I'm going to forget about the units, so the miles and the minutes I'm going to forget about for a moment, and I'm just going to put 2.5 over 5, and I want to reduce that so that we have a 1 on the bottom. Remember, that's a unit rate, and so speed is always in a unit rate, so that you know how fast you're going per 1 unit, so per 1 minute or per 1 hour. Okay, so we're going to expand it out just like we did before, okay, because we're going to reduce that down to a unit, and we know that we want the bottom to be 1, and so to get the 5 to be 1, you have to divide by 5. So 5 divided by 5 is 1. So that's going to determine what we divide the top by. Okay, so if you do this, remember this is 2.5, so don't get confused with 25. So when you divide that out, you actually get 0.5. So now if we put the units back in, we have 0.5 miles for every 1 minute. Okay, and let me move this up a little bit. Alright, so essentially you're just going a half a mile, because 0.5 miles is half a mile in 1 minute. So that's your speed of the subway car. Okay, so that was pulling information from a paragraph. We didn't write the paragraph down, remember, we just kind of pulled information from it, and that was what was up here and right here. So this gave us the ratio of males to females, and this gave us the ratio of miles to minutes, which we converted and found how many miles per minute. Okay, so we'll be doing a lot of that today. Alright, so let's use one where we actually go in and we just find, this is actually kind of review too, so let me put a table up here real quick. Okay, actually I'll title it for you so that what we're doing is we're finding a rate from a table. Okay, so instead of making a table, we're starting out with a table. Okay, so we're starting out with the table, and then we find the rate from that. And so yesterday we did it in reverse. We had a paragraph, found the information, and then made a table. So now we're going to do it in reverse. So let's set up the table here real quick. Okay, and we may not use all the pieces of this one, but what we're going to be measuring, let's see, I'm going to put square feet. Okay, so square feet, using a measurement, and down here I want to put the, I'm just going to put the sign for dollars, because what we're looking for is the cost per square foot. Okay, so on the amount, we're going to start filling stuff in, and I'll put that in red so it's different. So we have 25 square feet. We're going to jump, and instead of just going to 50, we're going to jump by 4. So we're going to actually times it by 4. Okay, so that's going to give us 100 square feet. And again, we're just going to multiply it by 4. And you can do it any way you want. The reason that I'm multiplying it by 4 is simply so I get a wider variety of information. So your intervals can be whatever you want them to be depending on what you're looking for. So again, I'm going to multiply that by 4, which is going to give me 400. And then multiply 400 by 4, which is going to give me 1600. Okay. I think as far as I'm going to go on that one for this demonstration. So I'm going to do the same thing with cost. I'm going to say it's over 100. Okay, and same process. Multiply that by 4, so that's 400 now. Multiply 400 by 4, so we have 1600. And then 1600 by 4, which is 6400. Okay, so what I've done is I set up what this is, and we're going to call this, and I'll put it up on top. We'll say this is the cost of artificial turf for a football field. Okay, so down here what we're saying is that for this many square feet, this is what it's going to cost. Okay, so we'll go back to the hand so you can see where my cursor is. So for 25 square feet, it's $100. For 100 square feet, it's $400. And then all the way over here for 1,600 square feet is $6,400. Okay, so we just gave ourselves a table that kind of shows us the price differences depending on how much we want. And so, but what if I want to say, I want this to be a unit rate? And remember, a unit rate is where the bottom is 1. So I want to know how much each square foot is going to cost. So I'm looking for the cost, right? So it's the cost that I'm going to put on top. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to use, go back to my pen here, I'm going to use the first unit because that's the smallest one and the easiest to use. Okay. So if I want to look for cost, I want to put that on top. So I'm actually going to want to have $100 on top. Okay, remember we're talking about money here. Okay, and then the square foot on bottom, and so that's the 25. Okay, and I'll put the unit, so square foot. Okay, or I could put FT squared on that. So that's what we're looking for. So again, for a moment, I'm going to forget about the units. I'm going to just write it as 100 over 25 because I want to reduce that. And it's the same process. We're just extending the line, and we want this to be 1 because I want to know how much this is going to cost per square foot. Okay? So again, even though the top number is bigger, it doesn't really matter in this case. We want to find the number that will go into 25 and 100. The other way you can look at it is that 25 has to get to 1, so you have to divide it by itself, which is a little bit easier. So divide by 25, because you want that to be 1. So 25 divided by 25 is 1. So that's what we divide the top by. Okay? And 10 divided by 25 is 4, and so what that tells us is that this is $4 for every square foot, and I'll write it as square foot this time. Okay, so $4 for every square foot that you buy. And this is useful because now you've got a more accurate price, so you don't have to think, well, 25 feet is $100, but I only want 20 feet. Well, this way you can actually figure that out because it's $4 per square foot. And so that's why it's nice to know what the actual unit rate is. And remember, the unit rate is 1 on bottom so that you know how much each one of them is. Okay, so that's the review of what we did yesterday. We're going to be doing more of this today. On the next part of it is the actual notes, because you'll need these because these are examples of the problems that you'll be doing today. Okay, so let's go ahead and pause and we'll get right back to it in a minute.